The fossil records are littered with evolutionary experiments gone wrong. Therizinosaurus, a predator that abandoned meat for plants but kept its massive claws. Carnotaurus, a bull-headed demon with vestigial arms that served no purpose. Amargasaurus, a sauropod that grew spines like some prehistoric porcupine from hell. And these are just a few examples from hundreds of dinosaurs where evolution got creative or was simply drunk. But among all these biological aberrations, one tiny creature stands apart. Something so fundamentally wrong and bizarre looking that if you described it to someone without showing them the fossil evidence or showed them a picture, they'd assume you were talking about an SCP entry rather than a real animal that once ruled the night skies. This is Anurognathus amani, and I gotta be real with you. If the SCP Foundation existed 150 million years ago, this thing would have been one of their first case files. Subject exhibits anomalous anatomical features, including disproportionately large ocular organs adapted for nocturnal surveillance, and a cranial structure containing what can only be described as a nightmare mouth. But this isn't fiction or some internet horror story. This nightmare was real, and it owned the darkness of the Mesozoic world. The first Anurognathus didn't emerge from some grand expedition or dramatic dig site. No, this little demon was plucked from the limestone tombs of Solnhofen, Germany, the same fossil graveyard that gave us Archaeopteryx. But while Archaeopteryx gets all the glory as the missing link, Anurognathus lurked in the shadows of scientific literature, waiting. When paleontologists first laid eyes on this specimen in 1923, they knew they were looking at something unsettling. Here was a pterosaur unlike any other, compact, bizarre, with anatomical features that seemed almost wrong. Its very name means without tail, and that absence speaks to something far more disturbing than simple evolutionary streamlining. This wasn't just another flying reptile. This was a predator engineered by 150 million years of evolution to be the perfect nighttime killer. Picture this: a creature no larger than a modern bat, with a wingspan barely reaching 2 feet. But don't let its size fool you. Anurognathus was built like a biological missile, every bone and sinew dedicated to one purpose: silent, efficient death. And its skull. That's where the horror truly begins. Massive eye sockets dominated its face, not the forward-facing eyes of a mammalian predator, but enormous bulging orbs that could gather every photon of available light. These weren't just big eyes. They were the eyes of something that owned the darkness. But the most chilling feature, its mouth. Where other pterosaurs boasted long, stabbing beaks, Anurognathus possessed something far more sinister, a short, incredibly wide gape lined with needle-sharp teeth. This wasn't a spear, this was a trap, a biological net designed to snatch prey from the air with surgical precision. But not only the mouth, but also the wings tell their own dark story. Broad, rounded, and built for maneuverability rather than speed. These weren't the wings of a soaring giant, but the wings of something that needed to twist and turn through dense forest canopies, following the desperate flight paths of terrified insects. It could stop on a dime, reverse direction in milliseconds, and appear behind its prey like some Mesozoic phantom. The late Jurassic world was not the tropical paradise often depicted in museums. As night fell across the European archipelago, the landscape transformed into something altogether more sinister. Dense, coniferous forests stretched endlessly, their canopies creating a maze of shadows perfect for an aerial predator. Anurognathus didn't just hunt at night, it basically was the night. While larger pterosaurs roosted helplessly until dawn, our little nightmare owned these dark hours completely. But here's where the story gets truly unsettling. Anurognathus may not have hunted alone. Some evidence suggests these creatures operated in small groups, coordinating their attacks like prehistoric pack hunters. They were perfectly silent. No echolocation calls like modern bats, just the whisper of membrane wings cutting through stagnant air. Their prey never saw them coming, never heard them approach. One moment an insect would be going about its nightly business. The next, it would simply vanish into that terrible wide mouth. The fossil evidence suggests they may have even hunted other small pterosaurs, turning predators into prey in the cruel mathematics of Mesozoic survival. But which other animals did this creature consider as prey? The answer is more extensive than you might expect. The most obvious one: insects, certainly. Massive dragonflies with wingspans approaching those of modern hawks, ancient moths the size of dinner plates, and beetles that would make your skin crawl. But Anurognathus's hunting repertoire extended far beyond simple bug catching. Small vertebrates fell victim to its predations. Juvenile lizards, tiny mammals no bigger than shrews, and even the chicks of other pterosaurs. Nothing that moved in the darkness was safe. That enormous mouth could accommodate prey much larger than its size would suggest, unhinging slightly like a snake's jaw to swallow victims that should have been impossible to consume. But even demons must look over their shoulders. The late Jurassic was no peaceful ecosystem. It was a killing field where every advantage could become a fatal weakness. Anurognathus ruled the night, yes, but it shared its world with creatures that could turn predator into prey in the blink of an eye. The skies belonged to giants like Pterodactylus and Rhamphorhynchus, pterosaurs with wingspans that dwarfed our little shadow hunter. To them, an Anurognathus was nothing more than a midnight snack, a morsel to be plucked from the darkness and swallowed whole. But the real terror came from below. The forests crawled with ground-dwelling predators that specialized in ambush hunting. Small theropods like Compsognathus, pack hunters with razor-sharp teeth and the speed to snatch a low-flying pterosaur from the air. One moment of careless hunting near the forest floor, and our nightmare became someone else's meal. Even more chilling was the competition within its own niche. Other small pterosaurs contested the same hunting grounds, the same prey. Battles in the darkness, aerial dogfights where the loser didn't just forfeit territory, but became dinner. The very adaptations that made Anurognathus a perfect killer also made it the perfect size for larger predators to consume. But like all nightmares, at least when we talk about prehistoric ones, Anurognathus's reign eventually ended. As the Jurassic gave way to the Cretaceous, changing climates and evolving ecosystems spelled doom for these specialized hunters. The very adaptations that made them perfect nocturnal predators became evolutionary dead ends. But perhaps that's for the best. In a world where Anurognathus still ruled the night skies, darkness would hold terrors we can barely imagine. The last Anurognathus died over 140 million years ago, its lineage extinct, its hunting grounds long since turned to stone. Yet sometimes, when night falls and the wind moves through the trees just right, you might catch yourself wondering, are you truly alone in the darkness?